Oh, good. What about you?
Yeah, I had I could really sleep in today, so that was very nice.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? I enjoy them when I can.
Yeah.
I
Or for
wonder,
a while, or throughout life, I always felt like sleep is a bit of almost waste of time. And there came a point when I realized I don't know what's happening when I sleep, but I actually really enjoy it.
yeah, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? What goes on? It seems like a really busy time to me. And when I get the option to sleep in, it's like I spend the last couple of hours or some period at the end of it doing a lot of dreaming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't tell you what it was today. The dreams are really interesting. Sometimes, very rarely, they can have such um, cathartic symbolism. So for some years ago, it was that I, for example, dreamed that I was just saying goodbye to a dog we had in childhood, and it was just, I mean, I even woke up with tears after that, and that felt like the real thing,
Mm,
actually saying goodbye. There was, and I mean, of course, I'm talking about it because really I'm carrying that with me.
mm, mm. Well, if you consider that when you're having them, dreams always feel real. So, in fact, they are real. It's only after we wake up that we say, oh, that was a real dream. But the content of it, as we go through it when we're having it, is very real. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be crazy dream stuff, but it's still real in terms of our experience. And I have no doubt that that dream you had about saying goodbye to your dog changed you.
It really felt healing. Yeah, it really felt. I'm very grateful to have had that.
Mm, yeah. Sadness can be immensely beautiful.
Yes.
Mm.
Um, Last couple of days, uh, yeah, recently I wondered a bit about how what I would like to what are questions I would like to ask? What are what am I really sort of sometimes, these last few meetings they stop without me saying something, and really wondered why didn't I say something? And uh, because I felt like I would have tons to say. And it's actually I do have so many questions. I mean, for one thing about sadness, there's for example, very real. sadness with me these days, but I feel like it's okay to just let it be. I don't think it will really do anything else but be sadness, even if it's just allowed. Sort of. That seems okay. And this week there was, and I'm like, I think the record on LU are like 75 pages until someone, or not someone, but until it clicked, right? I think just for reference, I'm at page 17. So, and just this week for like the first time, I think it was really seen through that this control over movement is is just not there. And I'm describing this angle of control because it is very sincere to say that I really constantly have this thought pattern or thoughts ending or being built upon this thought pattern of what should I do? Um, I'm not sure if it's easing. It might be easing, but it is very much there.
Mm.
And then just coming in these meetings, there's also this a bit silly notion. In a way, it is a bit silly. In a way, it's honest enough for me to say it, but like I want to awaken.
Hmm.
And even in that's in a way very silly,
Yep,
isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Get that. Yeah. I mean, you want to awaken, but if you're not awake, you've got no idea what it is that you want. But you know you want it.
Yeah, I've always wondered this. Um, how do I put this? I've some years ago listened to an audiobook where the teacher said, if you don't know what you're looking for, the most important thing is to learn what you're looking for, or the most important thing is what you want, or something like this. And I never figured out why I actually want all of this, why this is. I mean, I can see in my life this is sort of let's call it chased after. I've worked through like a lot, and it's of course you can imagine very much beneficial to my way of carrying through life. I would just close the door towards the street,
Hmm.
and yeah, of course I'm very much grateful for having chosen this path, which is
Yep.
at this point
Yeah.
very much a path, and I actually have no idea why I would do this. I don't really know why I would want to awaken. And I mean, yesterday, for example, I had moments where I very much noticed, okay, the suffering comes from identifying with this stuff. Okay, I can get that far, and then maybe glimpses of not identifying so much with the content of thoughts, for example. Glimpses of, oh yeah, right, there are the senses. It's nicer. So, of course, the suffering still was very much suffering still in between these few glimpses. So now I could say, oh, I want to escape suffering. This would be true to some extent, but it doesn't match. Another thing I consider is maybe this wanting for awakening is just a
Mm.
want for the search to end, maybe. But all of that I feel relies heavily on intellectualization, and it's so weird.
Yeah.
Seems like there should be a
It's a
way to
tricky
just
one. Yeah. 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 See, there's what came to mind as you were talking was this incredible social pressure to sound coherent, to make sense. Now, what if, what if you just want something what if there is just wanting, and what that's attached to is little glimpses that you've had throughout your life of moments, maybe instances, maybe just seconds of feeling something, and they come and they go, and you don't even pay much attention to them, but because they're not there for long enough to be big. But at some level, that that feels so complete. I, I call it home. You have those little instances of feeling like, oh, I'm just this is just wonderful, so complete, so full.
Yeah, for this entire, I want to chime in there. Um,
Yeah,
this entire thing started like this was uh, before I really ever dealt with any sort of spiritual or Buddhist material outside of how everyone has tried meditation. I tried it a while as well. But so absolutely no spiritual practice or something like this or content in my life, I'd say. And there was a moment where it very much like felt that the entire world sort of clicked in place, and I was, and I might say, of course, it's a memory, but I think there was very much of me still present, but it very much felt like I was observing this world precisely from the perspective I'm supposed to be, and suddenly it became like divine and immensely beautiful and radiating with something that is not of that is very much of the things they try to tell you about more than like religious circles like this. And there was an element
mm-hmm.
just beyond any rational communication. And what stuck with me is out my it didn't call it home. I called it, oh, my place within this world is within me. And that was immense. There was like um, I don't know. I don't think it lasted 5 minutes or something, but it's also, years
But it
ago.
doesn't matter. Could last half a second. Could be so quick that you don't even realize. But yeah, it's like I wonder, and I have no idea about this. I just create a story about this that every one of us knows something that we don't know, knows something that we can't articulate. And we know let's imagine, and I'm just making up a story here, but let's imagine that we all know that we're not separate from anybody or anything. We know of the I was going to say the word connection. I was going to say we know that we're connected, but it's more than connected. We know that we are it. We are them. I had a I had an experience immediately after I woke up where I was walking along the sidewalk and John Street. Oh, I'll just hang up. I was walking along the sidewalk and it felt to me like the ground came up and met my feet as I walked. And I remember this big tree, and I remember thinking that I am it and it is me. There was this. Now you could, and I wasn't on anything psychedelic, right? I had a psychedelic experience from when I woke up, and that was nearly 15 years ago, and I haven't had it since like that. But what I'm saying is, what if that's something that we all know at an unconscious level that it exists? Then you could imagine that yearning for that can bubble up to the surface.
Yeah, it is. It feels a bit like imagine a duck on a pond, and some part of the duck knows that at the bottom of the pond there is whatever treasure a duck would want, very much, very, very much. And with okay, yeah, about back to the duck. Um, uh, and of course, the duck is here on the surface, and maybe it doesn't know how to dive, or doesn't realize it should dive. It only has this compass of maybe direction, and it's searching frantically. And it see this duck swimming in a pond, swimming in whatever circles it it will trace to get closer to the object it's trying to find. But of course, it won't find it. It's simply it would need to dive. It wouldn't need it to be on the surface, and it's just missing its mark. It's frantically searching in circles, and like that sort of describes what I'm
Yeah,
interpreting as wanting, and it's not all that pleasant in a way. It's not
mm,
bothersome actually, but
yeah.
uh,
So getting out of suffering is seems like that's not what motivates you to want to wake up.
I
Something else
paused.
does. Mm,
Yeah, I paused a brief moment because something else came up. There was a moment this week where I actually had like this oh moment of um, oh, I'm doing this
that-
out of love. I'm doing this
mhm.
because of love, and it was like um, out of a love for something you in the very back of your heart you remember was there, must have been there, and you want to revisit it. Like um,
Yeah.
imagine you open a door in your house that you sort of ignored for forever. You step through this door and there's this most amazing, beautiful, wild, overgrown, and magical garden beneath this. And it's just this huge area, and it was like, oh, this is here, of course. Of course, I remember. I noticed from like when I was a little kid, I used to play here all the time. How could I fucking forget this? How could I possibly forget
Mm,
this? Like, that is, if I were a capable artist, this is something of an image I would draw to sort of
mm,
describe this seeking out of love. There's this feeling maybe that there is such a door
mm,
that there is something dearly missed. Oh, and it's been talking about dreams, like um, this specific metaphor for that I've chosen is something very reoccurring in dreams, and I sometimes wake up with like this notion of I haven't been to that place in a long, long time, and it's a very similar longing.
mm. Yeah, I get that. So what occurs to me is to find out what it is that motivates us i- isn't of particular value for the searcher. In fact, it can get in the road for the seeker to get there. But just knowing that something is there, that's enough. It, it's it's apparent to me, and I know of this garden you talk about. I live in this garden that you talk about. It is amazing, but there's also ants that bite you in it. There's also, yeah, but it's just that's part of it. That's
Yeah, but then again, the ants are also
yeah.
you get ants even if you're not in the garden, I imagine.
See, because I'm looking from the other side of the door at you trying to open that door to get into the garden. And I'm saying, stop pushing. You don't need to push the door. It actually opens inwards, not outwards. But even knowing that, pulling is not going to be what does it. You've got to turn the knob and you've got to undo the lock in order to be able to turn the knob. And that's really what we're about here with these groups and this stuff. We're about how do we open the door and step through into that. And the irony is that when it happens, there's no doing involved. There's no effort whatsoever. But everybody who wants to get through believes they've got to do something to get through. And they're all pushing instead of pulling. They're all trying to turn the knob that's locked. And the key's hanging right there next to it on a nail right next to the doors, the key to unlock it. But they don't see the key because they're so focused on the door. They're kind of crazy metaphors that we come up with to try and explain something like this. And the funny thing is, if you go through that door into that garden and then turn around and come back through the door, it's still that garden. In fact, you were in that garden all along.
So the first thing that comes is, oh, what do I do?
How do you do not doing?
Precisely. How do I do that? It's, it's almost mean. Like, you can find yourself sitting very,
Yeah.
very devoted, doing nothing,
Mm.
which is a lot of doing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't matter what part of the world you were brought up in, we're all afflicted by the same thing. We're all afflicted by this need to be in control and to be able to fix this. And it's so what we're looking for, you see, maybe that thing that yearning, that wanting comes from experience that we had as a very, very young child before we were taught to lose it. And so maybe everybody knows that it exists, but they don't know what it is. They don't remember, you see. It happened before the brain pruned all those memories and we so it's going to be at a time before you remember.
I feel like that is so this does very much resonate with a lot of like almost painful nostalgia and again feeling like that dark tracing circles that are so
Mm,
pointless. Me uh, like ending up going on eBay buying some childhood toys or something, and I know it's completely pointless. I love them though, but it's like so pointless. I know there is something I miss. I feel crazy nostalgic, and end up playing some what is now considered retro games. And again and again and again, for some reason, I'm not even sure if I enjoy them. And
mm,
just try to find old toys and all of of that stuff where I feel like, God, there's just no point. Is I know I'm not going to find what I'm looking for, but there's this unbearable sense of nostalgia at times,
mm,
and this ongoing metaphor and dreams, and those might be the most beautiful dreams in a way of like finding a long lost place or place
mm-hmm,
from a childhood, just discovering,
mm,
oh, I can get there anytime, actually. But it's also, it feels, how can I describe how it feels to seek something?
mm.
Um, can't really talk about with many people even.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? That one, yeah, for sure. Expressing love as we know exists in everything is also something we can't talk about.
And it's very much a searching out of love. Describing the love, the descriptions fail sort of at the point where I'm asking myself, my love for what, or for who, or by whom.
Yeah, well, that's a diversion, isn't it? That's a that's the thing. That's part of the conditioning. We've been told that we have to see the world in a certain way. Now, if you heard of dark matter,
Yes,
yeah,
that's the stuff that makes up like 95% or
yeah, yeah,
99% of the mass in the universe, and you can't find it or can't interact with it. But it's the only
yeah,
way we has something has to be there to explain the gravity we
yeah.
see.
But also science, even though they can't find it, they can't measure it, they don't know what it is. They call it dark matter. They do know that it binds everything together, that it's absolutely necessary, that everything depends on it for its existence. Well, I think that's just love. I think the scientists want to call it dark matter, but I'm going to call it love. But see, even as we talk about it, language mandates that we talk about it as though it were a thing, when in fact it may well be a process. In fact, what if we are a process? What if we take anything in the world and we say, look at it at a molecular level and it's just a bunch of atoms in relationship to each other. And the atoms in a rock have a different relationship to each other than atoms in a gas, for example. But they're still just atoms relating to each other. And that's what we are. What makes up us is just a different relationship between the atoms in us than it is for the atoms in a rock. But we're at a point. I actually wrote a story today and a song today about the mystery of it, the need we have, the incessant need we have to be able to explain everything. And it's not possible. It's not possible. That story came out of an article I read about a mathematician who's shown that mathematics, which is a way of creating worlds, has lots that cannot be known. And yet we see very definitely 1 + 1 = 2, so we go, yes, mathematics is certainty. But in fact, at this level that I'm talking about, there's no certainty. We simply can't know. So what if we take everything that we think we know and throw it out the window? Everything. Well, maybe we won't throw it out the window because it's useful if we're relating to the world, people in the world, etc. At a certain level, then that's useful stuff. So we're not going to throw it out the window, but we'll throw it out the window when it comes to an explanation to how things really work. We simply can't know. I don't know what creates me, how I'm held together, how I can walk, how I can, how I, these words, these sounds. What an amazing thing these sounds are. Blah, 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 blah. I open my mouth and out come these sounds and they travel across the world to you and you make sense of them. Wow, isn't that a blowout? How amazing is that? It's
Promise to me. Really.
yeah. So one of the ways to realize that the door is not actually locked, it's not even closed, is to stop trying to figure it out. Stop trying to make sense of it. Now you can't do that or not do that. You you can just leave it as a possibility that might visit you.
Yeah, the interesting thing that came up here is, or not analysis, but there is a small resistance to even that, letting go of trying to figure it out. That resistance says something like, okay, but what then? Mm,
Well, what makes you think there is a then?
oh, that is a very alien question.
So the story of then becomes actual. It will present as now. It's never then. There is no then, except as a story.
But so this still, it says, there's this that says, but if I'm not doing anything, uh, nothing will happen. Nothing, like,
No, 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 that's a bullshit story. Total bullshit, right? Did you do putting your fingers together like that.
No.
It just happened, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to say if I don't do something, nothing will happen is total bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't put these things together yet. Give me a moment. Um, yes, there is a movement that I sort of assumed to be doing.
Hmm. It's a legitimate description at a social level to say, I did this, I walked across the room. But you know, or I know, that walking across the room just happened. I'm not going to say that to people at a social level. I'm going to say I walked across the room, but I know it's just a way of describing something. It's not. It's not a. There's nothing accurate about it. But to be accurate, so what? One of the it's a big thing in the beginning, and in the beginning, it's a case of letting go of this idea that I control things.
But very much doesn't happen in one step here, it seems.
Mm. So once I recognize, I can still feel like I have control, but I know it's a happening. And with that knowing, it changes a whole lot of other things as well. And over time, the feeling that I have control, that also weakens. And then when I talk like I have control, it's obviously just a story to me. See, I could say to you, are you yawning because I'm boring you?
Now it's morning here.
Yeah, yeah, no, but I'm just saying, if I could say that, and that would be a social way of relating to yawning. But I experience yawning frequently, and it's not because I'm bored. It's not because I'm tired. Why is it? I don't know. It just happens. It just turns up. So
Plus,
am
if
I going to
someone,
feel that I'm rude when I yawn and somebody's talking to me? No, I'm not. I might acknowledge that they might think I'm rude, but I'm not going to take it personally and feel like, that shouldn't have happened because it did happen.
all right,
You
and
see,
saying, oh, now it's morning here is sort of the explanation that comes after the fact of maybe even why I did that.
hmm.
It's also after the fact. It hasn't much to do with the yawning itself, right?
So when we can dispense with a whole lot of that stuff, what it seems to do is open us up to the mystery, right? We can say, we know it's not that. We know it's not control, but then we go, well, what caused that happening? And then immediately we can go, I don't know, or, oh, I can see what was behind it. But even if you can see what's behind it, you'll only be seeing part of it. So the I don't know is probably a much more honest answer. So we have no idea about anything. Why do we do anything? Why do we not do things? We don't know. We don't need to know. Well, that takes a whole load off us. All of a sudden, we can drop this huge backpack that we've been carrying around with that's full of morals and judgment and all sorts of things that are unnecessary because we recognize that things just happen. Well, guess what? When you do that, the door to that garden is ajar.
It sounds like a whole lot of doing.
Yeah. Well, there's your pool of interest. Okay, that there's what's at the bottom of your pond, and you've just got to learn to duck dive to see it. So your pool of interest at the moment is all this stuff called doing. Where does it fit in? How does it control my life? Not looking particularly for answers, but being curious about it. Some answers will offer themselves with that curiosity, and a whole lot of it will stay in the unknown part.
Really, it's scary to not um, do anything
Hmm.
far away. And of course, of course, of course, of course, but I'm not there yet. Of course, of course, of course, one can see, it can be seen that there is no doing and things like this, but I feel like this hasn't marinated here sufficiently to really talk on that level. So I what is like station is like it's scary to not do anything, to
Yeah,
not push forward. It's like, oh my God, mm, how
yeah.
am I, how could I possibly stop pushing forward? How could I possibly do that? Do you know how important that is?
Mm. Yeah, I
Uh,
get it. I get it. I see it all the time, for sure. Yeah. Now, that scariness is a portal for you. Looking at that scariness closer, it's a very valuable place for you to be. Not looking for answers, not looking to make it clear, just being curious about it. What form does it take? Where do you feel it in the body? What are the stories associated with it?
well, that
Right.
is
So
about
you,
it.
you
Is
you said one of them quite big, quite clearly, and you said, if I don't do anything, nothing will happen. Now we refuted that, but only on an intellectual level. You know, you also know, but you keep the two facts separate, that if you don't do anything, things still happen. You know that, you've said that, yet at the same time, there's a belief, a scariness about not not something, not being able to, not achieving, not something. That
again, can you?
scariness is, yeah.
I think that's something I'm gonna try to put into words because it feels like, yeah, I can sort of pretend to stop pushing, like having one finger still at the door and oh, I'm not really pushing. I'm not I can suspend pushing for 5 minutes, of course. Having this one finger at the door, just in this bit of insincere pushing, and then again, there's a sense, and I'm saying this right now, but it's not a recreatable feeling. It's not like that feeling is, let's call it, um,
Yeah,
um,
integrated.
yeah, or I want to say easy to find, but I don't remember the English word for selbstverständlich. It's not a given thing that I can find this feeling of. It feels like giving up to really not to really even let your finger off the door, to really not push. And there's this association that it would feel like really giving up. And of course, in spiritual as I have consumed so many talks of people, and of course, there's this whole ordeal of how valuable giving up is. But when it comes to actually feeling this, it's like I don't care about spiritual talks. I don't want to give up.
Yeah. If you let's say that you decide that giving up would be a good thing, you think you could do it? If you know you've got no control, how can you possibly do giving up? So so you can be scared of giving up, but you can't give up. Even if you try to, you can't give up. You can only pretend
Yeah.
for a moment.
Yes. It's also this giving up would be like it wouldn't it has to do with this. If I don't do anything, nothing will come of it. And
Mm,
it feels like it would mean giving up pushing for good. That is something that comes up. And that, of course, that isn't really answering your question. It's just that some stuff is really coming up here right now.
mm. It's a very interesting area to look at, to contemplate, to experience. It's another portal for you.
I find it hard to find the words because the
Mm,
story comes. I mean, like the thoughts come that I don't know how to get in touch with that feeling. And then there comes looking for that feeling and not finding it. And then comes a frantic sensation of, oh, I've lost it. I've lost it. I've lost it. And
mm. So you can start with what you know. Oh, shitty words, sorry. Let's take them back. You can start with stuff that you're familiar with, right? So I reckon that a really good one for you would be playing the guitar. And you can go, I worked hard to learn how to do that chord automatically. And after learning how to do it, I can do it without thinking. It just happens. Right? But there's a transition from the idea that you worked hard to learn how to do it and that eventually you learned how to do it. But if you go back and look at all of that working hard that you did, each time you did it, things happened. And then things didn't happen. And then things did happen. And the more you did it, the more they did happen. But you did it more when you felt like you were getting somewhere. Or maybe you were more motivated when you weren't getting somewhere. I don't know. But regardless, right? So what I'm saying to you now is when you pick up a guitar and you just start playing, If you watch that happening, right? So there you are holding a guitar and doing what you do with your fingers, and the sound is happening, and then you realize no effort, no conscious involvement at all, really, just happening. That's exactly a perfect metaphor for what we're talking about with life in general. Just happening. When you walk across the room, it just happens. When you pour tea and stop the tea bag from falling in the cup, it just happens. You don't think, oh, I'm going to do this or not do this, or maybe you do. But regardless, if that happens as well, it also just happens, the thought. But a whole lot of it, that happens without any thought, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, these thoughts of I'm doing this even feel
Yeah.
just
But
and
if you,
oh, they feel like suffering. They feel like wrongness when too many of these I am doing this thoughts that come up.
yeah, well, if you, here's a big one. This is a really, really big one. This is a really valuable, important, big one. That the thoughts turn up is also part of what is happening. What the thoughts are about isn't about what is happening. It is what is happening. You are having the thought about what is happening. That is what is happening.
Yes.
That's a little bit obscure, I guess. Um,
No, I mean, I think that which comes up for me is probably what you mean. And
yeah,
it's a
good.
little bit like what you said at some point about even if people are lying, they're telling the truth. Like
Yes.
if
Yeah.
you stop listening to the content, you actually hear someone rambling, and you see that they very clearly talk about themselves.
Hmm. So we're not with this whole waking up thing. Our what we have learned, our conditioning says we've got to find something additional and add it to this ourself, us, in order to wake up. That's a diversion. What we're looking for is a recognition that absolutely everything is already here. So we're not looking for something extra to add. We're looking for a way of recognizing that we've already got it.
So that throws the garden metaphor a bit out of the window,
That garden is in your heart. Yeah.
or the door metaphor.
Mm.
Yeah, and of course, the next thing that comes up, but how do I do this?
Yeah. Well, rather than try and stop that from happening, make it bigger. Keep saying, how do I do it? How do I do it? Until
Yeah.
that becomes,
Celebrating that thought, right?
yes.
Okay.
Mm.
I feel like I've been said, oh, that's another story. Okay.
Yeah. Now, don't try and stop stories. That they're okay.
Mm. I feel like I have been trying to sort of pump up that thought for a while now.
Mm.
I feel oh yeah, the next thing is this particular thought about what am I going to do about it. It is so stuck. It is a bit um let me draw this picture of my experience. It was like coming to LU and always being scared. Like you see these people, they have five back and forth and they're awakening. They seem to immediately get it. And it has painted this picture in my head of how everyone just hears it once and they get it. It seems so integrated
Not
with these.
73 pages later.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, of course, and then I'm sort of the only 70 three pages deep conversation, and it's like so easy
Yeah.
to doubt anything ever
Yeah.
clicked. And this particular thought of what am I gonna do, it's sort of unattackable in a way. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm not thinking it all that much, but it's
Yeah. So let's say you turn the television on and you see somebody playing tennis in the 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 finals of the world's biggest tennis game. And all of the media says they've come out of nowhere, right? They've burst onto the scene and became the best tennis player in an instant.
yeah,
But when you talk to them, they'll tell you that they've been playing tennis since they were 3 years old and they've got 20 years of experience behind them. But as far as people who are observing are concerned, they've only been there for an instant. And like every seeker, there's a lifetime of seeking behind the moment when they wake up. Some do it faster than others. Some seem to do it faster, but it doesn't matter. Everybody will do it in their own way. So comparison's a bitch. Got to watch that one, especially when comparison is to what you think about somebody else rather than what you know about them.
yeah.
Buddhists often describe that in terms of lifetimes. I don't quite go along with reincarnation in that way, but maybe that's the case. I don't know. I have to wait to die before I know what it's like to be dead. But yeah, when you're ready, that's what it is.
Okay.
My feeling for you, Nils, is that you are a lot closer than what you think.
Here's the conundrum that is um, sometimes presents itself to me, and it's like I feel like I'm on the edge since a while.
Hmm. I had that feeling for about almost exactly 12 months, feeling on the verge, right on the edge. And I even started a blog called On the Verge. And I started to write down my experience every day because I had that feeling that I was right on the edge. And it happened 12 months later, almost to the day.
Mhm.
So I didn't know you had that feeling. Why would I say I think you're close?
I don't think that's really the answer, but what does come up here is the most sort of sensible thing to say is that I feel like there are certain people you do not, you only talk to when you're close. And it's not like everyone who talks to you is close to awakening, but it's also like you're not lecturing people out of, you say yourself, I'm walking through the room to 99% of people, right? And then there's 1% of people you tell, that walking actually happened on its own. In a way that's sort of like meeting a different person, maybe. Let's go with that metaphor. And so the one answer is I feel like life is giving you some, not just people, but just in general material, books,
Hmm.
conversations,
Yeah,
these readings, not not in random points. Like it somewhat feels like, for example, Liberation Unleashed, um, or The Wind Spot, right? Uh,
yeah,
at some part, it's like I couldn't have found that earlier.
yes, exactly. That's right. Why do these things turn up? We don't know, but it seems that they do. Yeah. We probably there's value in being a bit careful about getting too lost in stories about meaning and things like that. But it does seem as if things happen in some magical way, serendipitous. How come you end up on this at this group? You know, there was all these things that happened, and then here you are. It seems like it's meaningful. I don't know if it is, but or rather, I'll put it another way. I think it is meaningful, but I don't know if we can apply meaning to the conditions that brought it about. They appear random.
Yeah, you can always trace back a story, but if we're going on why, I couldn't answer why you would feel like I'm on the verge, but I could tell you that um, a token of that is just this conversation. right now is a token for that for me.
Mm,
Yeah. And then of course you can trace the story of how things came to be exactly as it was, but you might as well just imagine the story to it.
mm. But you see, some of the things that we've spoken about, one thing, and I don't even remember what it was now, but one thing that we spoke about went, oh, that's a really good one. That one, I'll write a story about that. So I'll do a story and a song and an investigation about that particular point. And it's like I can see that this conversation, although it appeared somewhat random in terms of turning up and what we spoke about, it produced something in me that led me to do something. And when somebody reads that, it might affect them. So let's imagine that there's this chain of events that happen. And if we trace it back, we can go back forever. We can go back to your caveman ancestors and still be going back even further. Not that we know about it, but what I'm saying is everything was involved. And it's the same going forward. Everything is involved. Who knows what the outcome will be? But it's fucking wonderful. Really, really wonderful. Everything in this garden is wonderful. There's some amazing stuff and there's some very ordinary looking stuff. But altogether, it's really wonderful. Mind blowingly wonderful. Thank you, Nils.
Thank you, Vince.
Mm,
Hi, everyone.
mm.
Hey Vince,
Hey, Tammy.
good to hear you guys.
Nice to hear your voice too.
Thank you. I guess I would just ask for any input. You were saying on the verge, and I guess I was thinking, do I feel on the verge? And first of all, it was very cool that it was like a year later that it happened. So that was cool that you had that intuition. Um, I wouldn't say I feel on the verge. I don't think I feel that. I think I feel that I have days or times where I'm like,
Mm,
um, mm, I get things, or things are flowing, or everything kind of a little bit falls into place, or there's ease or something. And then I get totally stuck again. Granted, I am on a family vacation now. Um, Extremely complicated dynamics, nonstop stimulation of all kinds, from, the sunscreen in my eyes to the noise to the lights to the basically the family dynamics and people throwing up at 2:15 in the morning. There's just a lot going on. Um, Food poisoning, whatever. And then tons of stuff with my doctor and panic and appointments the morning of leaving, running into town for an appointment. Everything kind of triggered in all kinds of ways, from health to family to my internal state. And I keep trying to find oases of calm. Everyone's at the pool now, and I came up here to be with you guys. But my body's also flaring up. I may have accidentally eaten something that I didn't know was there. Anyway, everything is just kind of on
mm,
fire and fear, and I'm ordering medicine and trying to avoid other things. And it's just all of my stuff has been triggered over the last few weeks. And yeah, I'm just I am finding moments of, gratitude, moments of ease, moments of flow, moments of whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah, glad we're going home tomorrow. It's been if they say the test of, awakeness is with your family. So yep, that's been. And some, not screaming matches, but some things have flared, but I think maybe also progress. In other words, maybe also taking things maybe lighter. And even though had that, dramatic talk or whatever, like being able to move on easier than other times rather than having to sit with that or just, I don't know, some a little bit growth, probably more on the human level than the awakening level, although being able to see things, from far, step back, see it all happening is definitely part of that.
Good,
Um,
good. I'd like to just jump in and just say one thing here. The human level and the awakening level are not separate. They're not different. But I do get what you mean. I do know what you're saying. But what I want you to do is bring the spiritual stuff, the awakening level stuff, back to a human level. That's where it lives. It doesn't live in a special space. It's not transcendent. It's not above. It's very, very ordinarily human.
yeah,
Anyway, just you don't need to do anything about that. Just it's just what I wanted to say. Yeah.
that awakening on any level is good. In other words, any progress is progress. Like more space, more maturity, more ease is
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
any direction is a
Yeah,
loosening
well,
or
well,
easing.
see, that's part of the thing that kind of comes up here is that idea of progress. The idea progress implies moving forward into something, and that presumably we have a fantasy that something is better. Well, so that kind of works at one level, but it's a very simplistic level, if you like. So what we're talking about is what's here now. And that's not a matter of movement away from this what's here now. It's really a case of adjusting our perspective on what is here now.
Yeah.
I think somebody famous, I'm not sure who, maybe Krishnamurti or somebody, said something about I don't have a preference for what turns up, which seems like an impossibility from, I'm imagining, from your perspective. How can you not have a preference? I mean, I much prefer chocolate ice cream over kale. So, of course, I've got a preference. But when we look at what I said, I don't have a preference about what turns up. So, which either one turns up, it is what it is, and I'm not going to fight it. So, if family do things, at some point, I'm able to fit in with it, whatever it is. But until that happens, of course, I've got a preference. But every time I've got a preference, I've got an opportunity to recognize that I'm adding a whole lot of fantasy to this in order to create that preference.
I'll take it maybe in a different direction, unless you weren't finished, Vince. Go on.
Yeah, you go. That's all right. I was a bit lost where to go with it after that.
Mm. I actually, that was helpful because I took it maybe in a different direction than what you had then expounded upon or expanded upon. But um, in other words, you're saying you don't have a preference in terms of what the family does. I'm more, it was like a relief for me to hear those words because I was like, I don't have a preference what turns up in me because I was feeling more shame, guilt, blame, remorse about my own lack of progress, lack of
Yeah,
whatever,
yep,
disillusionment with life, how I did get triggered into, raising my voice, or I mean, not really, you know what I mean, got triggered to being
yeah,
whatever, or got sucked into certain things, or feeling irritated, or running after them, or the anxiety, whatever has arisen in me, feeling like deep shame and wishing it would be different. But instead of like, okay, today arose a bit of not argumentative, but like getting into the dramatic discussion, or in other words, getting getting triggered. If I don't have a preference around that either, it's kind of like my friend that I told you about. She like yells a lot at her husband, at her kids, but she's also a wonderful, wonderful, warm person. But she has all kinds of, but and she
hmm,
doesn't mind herself. She's also gained a ton of weight. She doesn't get down on herself. She's just okay with those. And that makes it more pleasant to, you know, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know how pleasant her husband and kids find it, but for me, interacting from afar every few weeks. In other
mm,
words, the added level of castigation and remorse and blame and shame and guilt and wishing I'd be different and trying to fix myself. In other words, so when you said like, I don't mind what turns up, I'm like, okay, I don't have to be perfect. I can be very triggered human,
yes,
dealing with
yes,
illness and family and tons of things at once. Like all of my, like, you realize I'm not even getting into any of the heavy stuff. The things I bring are the lightest things. So,
yeah,
dealing with
exactly,
all this
yeah,
stuff, and I can get, triggered and sucked into stuff and go into stuff and go into analysis and obsess for hours about should I buy this
yeah.
sunscreen or that medicine, and maybe that's okay too. But the question is, when does that become just an excuse to be living in suffering versus
Well,
progress? But
that's true.
yeah.
There you go. That's a big one, isn't it? So I would say if somebody said I never get triggered and I'm always happy, I'd go, okay, I wonder what drugs you're on.
Wait,
I
say that
w-
again.
if somebody said they were always happy and they never get
Ah,
triggered by
uh-huh.
anything, right? To me, that's unrealistic. What
Even for awake people?
yes, absolutely for awake people. So the way I would see it for awake people is they will get triggered, but they'll realize when it happens that it happened and they'll drop it. It'll change because they're not going to spiral off from that trigger into the next trigger and the next trigger and the next trigger. And so the whole thing is more realistically is they'll get triggered, they'll recognize that it happened. They're not going to judge themselves for it. They're not going to feel ashamed. They're going to go, okay, it just happened, right? And consequently, they'll get over it very quickly. And when you look at the pattern over time, because of that, it'll happen less and less.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will it ever get to the point where it never happens? I can't imagine that to be the case. I still get triggered,
Mm.
right? So it's not a case of we're not looking for some wonderful perfection where we're always equanimous and zen-like. That's a fantasy, as
Yeah,
I see
that
it.
definitely was my fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe other people, maybe somebody does experience it that way. I don't know. I wonder if the Dalai Lama ever gets triggered. Hmm. So it's not so much what happens, it's about how we take it when it happens.
Yeah. And yesterday, kind of like I'm with my baby sister and her twin, who is special, whatever. We're in the same room, and um, my baby sister and I kind of blew up the first day and we had a conversation that needed to be had. And we kind of have every year at the family vacation. And anyway, it went maybe deeper this time, but also it ended up more despairingly, but also more joyfully. Because, like, okay, we've been here, we know it. And she keeps saying it's not going to change. And I keep convincing her all the years, it is going to change. We could do better. I'll do better. Let me just be perfect. Like, I'm trying. And now we're like, okay, we both suck in these various ways. Now, can we still make this like, okay, we're mature adults. Can we make this week nice anyway? Yes, I suck in this way. You suck in that way. I'm trying hard. We
Yeah,
still think that,
yeah.
can we do it? And like, I don't know, it ended up a bit lighter. And then yesterday she triggered back into her old something at the beach and there was a whole thing. And when we got back, she was going to, I think she expected me to be angry or to bring it up or something. And I just took a deep breath and I allowed myself to pretend that it didn't happen and just be like, hey, can I borrow your hair cream? And I just saw relief on her face that I wasn't
Mm.
holding a grudge. I wasn't nothing. I wasn't going to remind her. I wasn't going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
discuss it. And we
You
just
weren't going
moved
to
on.
spiral off into the second arrow stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
And it
stuff.
just,
Yeah,
it was really, and it's been really, yeah. So it's like, it's so annoying that getting mature takes so long and that I'm so like, I don't know. It's tiny, tiny increments, but there they are. And so I really appreciate
yeah,
you saying that I'm never going to be, because that's what I've been trying. I've been avoiding life and meeting new people because I'm like, no, no, no. I need to be a Zen angel before I can meet anyone because I don't want to,
yeah,
inflict myself upon others or them inflicted upon me and create drama. But I don't know if it's ever going to happen, at least not in this lifetime, not before I die. I mean, if it took so
yeah,
many years and this is the best I can do, and I'm trying every single moment of every single day, even in my sleep, probably, then, this is like,
mm,
unless an exponential miracle happens, like, anyway. So it's more about
yeah, yeah,
allowing myself to have those, which is very hard to not be perfect. I'm always like, oh my God, did I not give that person enough attention? Did I say something wrong to the? I'm always afraid of like hurting people or offending and like, or not
yeah,
being like the perfect person for them. I don't know. And just like,
yep.
yeah.
So this story pops up for me. You get to be perfect, and then you expect others to be perfect. And then you poor bugger, you're going to be living in a world of imperfection because nobody else is ever going to be perfect, are they?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still looking, but yeah.
So part of this process, it seems to me something that's happened here is that having compassion for myself for what turns up here allows me to be compassionate about everybody else.
Mm,
So my imperfections forgive everybody else their imperfections or their perceived imperfections.
yeah. When we act like we wouldn't choose to if we were imperfect. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a tricky one. So in a way, what we're doing here is we're discovering stuff about ourselves, and at some point that will then radiate out into the world. It will then become what we expect of others is what we expect of ourselves. And we don't expect perfection. We expect ourselves to be very human because that's the way we are. We just ended up in this human form, didn't we? We're not a dog or a horse or a camel. We're a person. And that's the way we are. That's what we've got to deal with. So we can only see things through human eyes. We can't see things through an insect's eyes. We can't smell things through a dog's nose. We've got human faculties and we can only be human about whatever we do. And
Mm,
that's somewhat limiting in the bigger, wider world. If we were to construct a person now, if I was God and I could make a person, I would give him the vision of everything that's alive. I would give him the smell of everything that's alive. I would give him the hearing of everything that's alive. I mean, God, dogs can hear what 40 times what people can hear or something. I don't know the exact figures, but so you got things that are super acute that other animals and insects have that humans don't, and vice versa. I'd love to have better vision instead of having to wear glasses all the time, but I do. And I'm going to a hearing aid thing tomorrow because I don't hear high frequencies very well at all, really. So, I live with these imperfections. And so what do I expect from others? Yeah, same kind of imperfections or their version of the imperfections that I've got. I tell you, it takes a lot of stress out of life when you don't expect others to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Living in this world of trying to be perfect and make everything else perfect has been very
Oh,
tiring.
wow. Yeah, that's exhausting, that one. Yeah.
Yeah. For a variety of causes and conditions, as you would say. Part of it is fear that things won't go well unless we do better, and part of it is
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of reasons why. But
Yeah. And a lot of it's just total craziness. I mean, what I was talking about with Nils earlier, that's a huge one. That if I stop doing stuff, things won't happen. Well, that's the biggest load of rubbish I've ever heard, but it's commonly believed.
mm,
And our society, especially the further right you get, the more that's taken to be gospel. You know, the billionaires think that the poor people are poor because they deserve it because they haven't pulled themselves up by their bootstraps.
they're
Well,
not trying hard enough. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And of course, we know that that's just a load of rubbish, isn't it? The billionaires are billionaires because they inherited their money mostly or whatever. I don't know.
No, some
Yeah.
are self-made, but that's luck. It's not that they were doing more than someone else. They were gifted with the
Yeah.
brains at the right time and the right place, and it fell into place.
That's
But
right. The right time and place are so important, aren't they? They're the circumstances that allowed that to happen. Yeah.
and the right idea popped in their head, and they had the energy and the
Mm.
drive, and so it happened. But yeah, we
Mm.
all feel that we could be that way if we only tried harder. Yep. I
Well,
remember I was
that's what
listening.
we've been peddled, haven't we? That story.
Yeah, I was listening to this billionaire a few years ago when I first got diagnosed, and I was terrified. And I was up at 5 a.m. doing research. I could barely move. I was knocked out, and I was just doing research 8 hours a day because I could barely move. And I was just trying to find out anything medical science new or alternative, anything. And at 5 a.m., I was listening to this billionaire, and his wife had issues, and they had the money and they were these people that everything is my responsibility. I'm taking charge of my life, total responsibility. And they hired the best doctors in the world. And for 7 years, she still wasn't better. And I started, and he was like, but he was also saying, you have to try harder, get up earlier. I get up at 5 a.m. I'm like, I'm up at 5 a.m. I'm listening to you and I'm researching at like, what more could I be doing? I'm doing the things you say. There's only 24 hours a day. But the fact that his wife wasn't getting better after 7 years of the top people made me relax like
Yeah.
1% more. I'm like, if I had $1 billion money and I, had all the expert, you don't necessarily
Mm.
know either. You can try what you try and what works and doesn't what doesn't. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's very tempting because you want to believe if you just tried. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I just tried harder, it would work, and that's what I've been exhausting myself with for decades
Yeah.
on every level.
Yeah, they're very seductive stories, and they're made to be that way. Whether it's on purpose or not is irrelevant, but they do. They are. They're very seductive, And they're if only stories.
Yeah. Like that there's some way out, that there's some way to get certainty and avoidance of suffering. And I think that's what draws people to spirituality of like, I
Yeah,
mean,
a
for
lot of them it
different
does.
reasons,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's like, is there a way out of this uncertainty and this struggle? And 1 minute you're in bliss, 1 minute you're in hell. It's not fun on this roller coaster. You want to get off, and the wheel of samsara, you can get off the Ferris wheel of samsara. So you're like, okay, show me the way out of the
Mm,
park. And it's like, okay, you can either get out because you'll no longer whatever, or okay, you can get out, but you'll no longer feel it. You'll be floating above it all in a cloud of equanimity. Good morning, my dear fellows. Everything is wonderful here in Zen land.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and that's where I've been like, okay, I got it now. Look, I'm floating on a cloud of Zen. Ah, and then smash, someone knocks into you and drops over your coffee and steps on your foot, and the dog is jumping on you, and you're like, ah, that's it. You've ruined my equanimity. And
Yeah. It's a big one.
so so where is the enlightenment, Vince? Is there no way out? Is there no enlightenment that's a way out of humanness?
Oh, that's a big one, isn't it? No, no, it's a way into humanness that we're talking about, not a way out of it. That's it. So all of those stories are about a way out of it, but there is no way out of it, and so it doesn't really work. It's a way into a humanness that's going to change your experience of life, into being more human, more fully human. We are going to embrace that which we have, that which our human experience is offering us, and stop trying to add to it inhuman or post-human or more than human. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah.
We're not going to
Yeah.
we see, and the irony is that when we're fully human, we're more godlike than ever we would be chasing trying to be godlike. It's just our idea of godlike. Yeah. Yeah, I was no, it might be valuable for you to watch this video. And in the beginning, I was talking with Nils about it, and see, he didn't come to this through suffering. There was something else. It's and it really took me into an amazing thing. I never had that experience before, but this story popped up that said something like, back before we can remember, we had an experience of what I might call home. We had an experience of belonging. We had an experience of something before we were taught stuff that killed it, that hid it, that took it away, and that we actually remember it, but only with our body. We don't remember it in our mind. It's kind of because it was before we can remember. So if you can't remember, anything, if your earliest memory is as a 5-year old, then something happened when you were a 4-year old or a 3-year old, right? Back then there was some experience of be, being fully human without any judgment, without any description. It was just the experience of being fully human. And that's something that our bodies remember. And that's something where the wanting for enlightenment might come from. Somewhere like that. Like, we know it exists because it's been part of our experience, even though we can't remember it. And I wonder if that's the case. So we can talk about people come to this because of suffering. Well, even if that's the case, they can imagine not suffering. Maybe they don't do it in a tangible way, but there is part of them that knows what it's like to not suffer. And I'm imagining that may be in at that 3 or 4 year old level before they can remember that they experience that. And so consequently that memory exists in them, and that's that's the garden of love that they want to get back to.
When you
Maybe.
say that,
Purely a story,
yeah.
but I love it. It's a beautiful story. I'm going to do something with that, but I like it. Yeah.
Mhm. Nice.
Also, I
To me,
just at some point was like, oh, I want Vince to talk more about the garden. I'd really enjoy a song about that.
Yeah, to me, there's a physiological or physical component to this whole awakening stuff. And I remember years ago, I started to realize, the tension in my body and contraction is a component of it. And I think, I don't know, when you were talking just now, to me, it's very simple. It's like what you were saying. I just had this vision. We're born like babies and we're free because we don't have any knowledge that we shouldn't be how we are. And every
That's
second,
right.
like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, I remember when people started to tell me, cover your this or cover your that. Like, you shouldn't be uncovered your body parts. I was like, why would I cover that? It was just like, why are they singling out body parts and saying this or that? Or,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, it
cover your
never made any
knees at
sense.
school. And I was like, why are you
Yeah,
talking about my knees? Why do you keep talking about my knees? Cover your knees at school. And like, you had to wear like certain things or in certain places to be decent and just don't say,
yeah,
don't speak like that, don't sing like that. There's so many words to remember and you just see the brain computing, wait, don't do that, don't do that, and just the body just
exactly.
keeps on
Yes,
contracting itself to remember all the things to be proper, and it just you end up just a tightly wound ball of knots trying to remember all the conflict. And then in a different society, they say, oh, don't be so tense. There you have to be relaxed and wear less clothes. And here they say, oh, you should curse. That's a real down to earth, salt of the earth person curses. So you start to curse. And the other place says,
yeah,
people don't curse.
yeah.
And just every place is just the
It's
opposite of
crazy.
every
None of it
place.
makes
And
sense,
you
does
have
it?
to,
Yeah,
yeah, and you have to walk into each room you walk into with different people. It's like walking into a different room, a different virtual reality, like a whole different video game, and you have to pretend that's the real one and everyone else is off, and you
yeah.
have to just fit in, and it's a lot for the body and brain to compute, and then all
Well, it's
these things.
also
I mean,
contradictions too. A lot of it. Not only
totally,
does it not make sense, but it actually contradicts itself.
completely.
Mm.
And there's all these bodily things you have to put in food, and then food comes out and has to be at the right times in the right place. I mean, the whole thing's just a lot going on for the body to.
Yeah, yeah,
And then people are driving and going, and if you're not on time, it's just so much frantic stuff can be. But
yep, yeah. It's crazy stuff, isn't it?
so getting back to that place where none of that is there, that programming, I don't know if it's possible, but we can let go of some of it, and maybe that's the
Right.
garden
It's
of love. But I
yeah.
don't know if it's totally possible because we still
I
function in
agree. Yeah,
society.
it's not possible to get back to that place fully because we've learned all this stuff since, and we've not only learned it, but we've integrated it. Right.
And
So
it's
we're
still
not.
ongoing. Like if you were
Sorry.
stranded and it's still ongoing, like if we were stranded on an island somewhere with just, three people and a monkey. In other words, maybe the body would learn other things, but still there's still a lot going on. You have to make shelter and there's stuff. There's a lot that the body and mind have to keep
Yeah.
track of.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be fully free like when we were two and didn't realize we had
Yeah.
to take care of ourselves and
Yeah. So we're not looking for perfection again. We're just looking to ease the burden to whatever extent we can. So we're not going to measure it. We're not going to go, how successful are we in doing that? Right. Well, all I was pointing out with that story was that maybe there's an intrinsic knowing or an intuition or something like that drives us for this. And that's part of what. So when it never made sense to me what the people seekers want to wake up, but they've got no idea what waking up is. And even if they articulate it at all, they can recognize that what they've got is a fantasy that's not realistic. Yet they still want it. So maybe the fantasy that they develop about what waking up is a metaphor for something that their body remembers. Maybe.
mm.
I don't know. Yeah.
And that's why they say, it's not an adding on or a getting, it's a losing everything. And I think the losing everything is losing some of those tensions and second arrows and fears and things that we're
Yeah,
holding on to.
yeah. So we're not gonna lose. I mean, I know what it's well, I mean, I've probably always had a bit of trouble with this one, but I know how to be polite. And in the right circumstances, I will behave politely, even if it doesn't make any logical sense. It's a way of getting on. So it's adaptable behavior. Right? If I went up to the street and said to somebody, you don't know what you're doing, or you think you know what you're doing, but you don't, well, they're going to punch me in the nose probably, or some version of that. So you don't do that. What do? You behave politely. Even if you think I don't like the way you present, or I don't like your aggressive attitude, or something like that, you still pretend, don't you? And that's just being polite. That's the way it is. So we're never going to lose that. That's always there and it's always available. But when it kicks in, we know it's kicked in. We don't judge it either. We just go, okay,
Mm,
there it is. Yeah.
yeah, not judging ourselves for being human and part of the human
That's
system.
the big one. Yeah. Yeah. Here's one I heard a long time ago that I thought was really valuable, really good. And that is that if you treated anybody else in your life the way you treat yourself, you'd have no friends.
That's a good one. Maybe true. Maybe very true.
Yeah.
I guess it's like still niggling. In other words, all of this stuff is like maturity, common sense, looking back and being honest, taking a look, but none of it is some shift in identity, magical enlightenment. So is there still something that we're missing here?
I'm not clear on your question.
In other words, what we're talking about today is like on the level of maturity, seeing clearly, not adding second arrow stuff, kind of like a wise, you know,
Yep. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
grandmother type. In other words, someone who has lived, who has seen, who has calmed down because of it, who has, I don't know. So I'm saying all of this kind of is very understandable and
Mm,
we can do it, we can see it, we can see the growth in it, we can
yeah.
deepen in it, but is there still something else that we're missing? The all these people that speak, whether it's, Aja, or Rupert or Angelo, like they've had the shift and like are we still missing something if this is all that we get? Is there some magical or state shift or something that we're not seeing that
Yeah.
would
All
ease
right.
suffering even more or something like
I'm guessing that and I mean I can only imagine that they are confined by the same thing that confines me, and that is the use of language. How do you communicate this stuff so that it's meaningful for others? And that is really, really difficult. I mean, as you can see,
mm,
how long have you and I been talking? And yeah, we're still working on this communication, aren't we? So
mm,
that it's a tricky one, and I suspect that they're the same as me. I mean, some people are better orators than others, and that they maybe are more skillful in the way they can present things. But I suspect that the nature of our society and our language is such that it's really difficult to convey what triggers, I suppose, that will help people get into this okay space. And really, it just is an okay space. It's just, well, it's more than okay, but I mean, you know, if I just describe it as okay, that's a good start, isn't it?
I guess my question is if someone were just to understand what we spoke about here today, is that A enough? And is that all there is, or is there something else that we're missing and
Oh
that I'm
yeah,
missing?
definitely. Yeah, definitely something else. So understanding of it is just having stories that don't have contradictions. If you look at what is understanding, you know, when you say, "Ah, I understand that," it's like your mind has come to some place where there is no conflict. I mean, that was a bit of a silly way to put it, but okay, your
You've
story,
resolved it or something like.
yeah, your story is seen as the way it is. It's seen as real. That's what understanding is, right? So yeah, but so that doesn't touch this stuff. What this stuff is about is experiencing, and that the experience is not going to have any kind of stories that might lead to understanding attached to it. We can overlay our experience with those things, but it's not going to actually touch them. It's just like if I see, I say the words if I anything, if I communicate something about I am sitting here talking to you, it's so obvious to me that that's a story that I just made up. If I try to relate what I'm actually experiencing, yeah, you're too sweet, Pete. If I try to convey something that I'm experiencing here more accurately, I might say there's a feeling in my bum and a feeling under the calves of my legs and a feeling on top of my legs where the cat is sitting and a sound that I hear and I'm imagining it's coming out of my mouth and I can feel my lips touching each other as my mouth opens and shuts. But the sound is more like it's in my ears than coming out of my mouth. But I'm right. Well, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do it that way, but that's much more accurate. But when I say, oh, okay, me, Vince, is sitting here talking to you, I think, oh, that's a story. That's an overlay over what's happening. Yet it makes sense to do it that way for you, for others.
But why is the cat more real than us speaking? I'm not sure how you define what is real versus story.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I made up the story about the cat because I can't actually see it, but I can feel something that I presume is the cat sitting on my leg. Yeah. Mhm. And it turns out I could see this ginger thing when I lifted the computer up. Yeah.
So why is us talking a story?
No, us talking is not a story, but us talking is a story about us talking. Yeah. Okay. Um, the story component happens when I try and communicate with you what's going on. And it's removed from what the experience is
Mm-hmm. So
because it's a
thinking about
it's
what's
a
happening, is the
it's
story
about,
and doing it.
yeah. So the story is about the experience.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to try and convey the experiencing to you, it would be a bit nonsensical to you. It doesn't make any sense. So, but the story does. The story, because
Yeah,
that's how what we've learned to do is we've learned to throw stories at each other.
it's so true. And then I wanted to make an enemy of that and say, oh my God, how do I stop talking to myself about my experience? And now I'm
Yeah,
like, well, I don't mind. I have no preference. If that arises, that arises, right? If that's how we're going to live in conditioning and stories, then that's what we do. I mean, I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe we can stop it, but we can stop blaming ourselves. But is that enough? I don't know.
yeah. But see, I wasn't actually aware of my experiencing until I described it to you. And when I described it to you, I could feel my bum on the chair because I've been sitting here now for 2 hours and 49 minutes and or no, an hour and 49 minutes. And I can feel the feeling in my bum. I can feel the warmth of the cat on my legs and so on. But I wasn't conscious of that until I described it to you.
Hmm.
You know, there was what was much more in part of my experiencing was this talking and listening and this back and forward between us.
Hmm.
So that might be another part of your fantasy. It may, I'm not accusing you, it may or may not be. Part of your fantasy is that you would be constantly aware of your experiencing. Well, I can only be aware of where my focus goes. So if I now,
Hmm.
as an example of this, I think, oh, my big toe on my right foot. Well, I can put my focus there and I can kind of feel it without, if I move it, I can feel it. But if I don't move it, I can kind of imagine I'm feeling it. But it's irrelevant. But while I'm trying to feel my big toe on my right foot, I'm not aware of my ears or
Hmm.
any other part of me. See, so I can't be aware of all of my sense
Everything.
input at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this episode of Friends where they talk about unagi, like being always mentally alert and prepared for anything or something like that. I think it's a martial arts thing, but
Hmm. Yeah, yet I know from experience that we can experience under certain circumstances really amazing things. So I can easily imagine. I mean, I can go and play golf. Now amazingly, I played yesterday morning with the vets. The veterans, and I go that every Tuesday morning and play with them. And I had a pretty bad game in terms of my score and my ability to put the ball in the hole all the time and so on, right? And then after that finished, I went out with a friend and played another 9 holes, and I played a much better game. There was no logic to it.
mm,
Why could I whack that ball and it can go straight? And yet this morning I couldn't hit one straight one, you know? No, no idea. So what's possible? And then I look at pro golfers and think, wow, they are amazing what they can do. They can put the ball wherever they want to almost. And yet they can't, but they do a much better job. So they're in the luck zone because of the skill that they've developed, because of whatever. Their amazing amount of practice they do, or the way their body works, or who knows what it is.
hmm.
And I can see gymnasts who can do amazing things, or divers, or people flying in those suits, jump out of airplanes and fly along for ages in those wings that they wear. and amazing things that people can do, and it's not part of
Mhm.
I don't know about that stuff. So I don't want to put limits on what anybody can do is because I see so much amazing skill. Well, I call it skill, but they can do it. It is fantastic. So yeah, there's anything is possible, is what I say.
In terms of what, Vince? How does this is this related to awakening or just in general?
Well, what's related to this, I think, in a big way, is that I'm not going to create artificial limits for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tell me somebody can read minds, I'm not going to disbelieve it.
Mm.
It's possible. I don't know if it is or not. If you tell me somebody can fly, well, I'm less likely to believe that than I am that
Hmm.
somebody can read minds. But who knows? Maybe somebody can. I don't know. It's not likely though.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm really open-minded about things like mind reading. I wonder if it is mind reading or body reading or
Yeah.
what it is, But see, again,
Because you
I
yourself
don't
have
know.
intuition, so you can kind of sense into how someone would just
Yeah,
take that a little bit further, because you also can kind of tell sometimes. And
yeah, you do. You trust your intuition, and so I'm imagining that people who we see as mind readers do a lot of that. But I don't know. Maybe that's what it is, or maybe they don't even realize what it is they do. They just do it. Who knows? So yeah, I love the mystery concept. That there's so much in this world that we simply don't know, we can't know. I mean, I keep coming back to this one. Quantum physics says something doesn't even exist until you interact with it.
I'd never
Well,
heard that. Cool.
uh,
Maybe that's why we need attention. We feel we don't exist until someone interacts with us.
yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know if it works quite like that, but yeah. So I don't know. You see, because there's a lot of contradictions. Now, what Einstein's thing about time and space is really interesting, and there've been things that have debunked some of that and said of other things. Um, so who knows? Who knows how things actually work? Well, what's this thing called consciousness? We know it exists, but we don't know what it is, and we certainly don't know how to do anything with it, control it. So is there such a thing as consciousness? Nobody's ever found it. It's the same as that. What happens when somebody dies? Does something leave the body? Or does it simply stop being created? Or what? Who knows? Anything's possible. So what I'm saying is I embrace the mystery. All of this stuff that might be or might not be, and I'm with them that embracing it. I don't have a compulsion for an answer. I'm quite happy to leave it as a mystery. Yet I'm curious and interested, but there's no compulsion for some kind of satisfaction, mental satisfaction, especially because I know that's got its own thing.
What do you mean?
Well, it's a big one. It's definitely something that would be worth considering, and that is that there's all this stuff that we can't know. There's all this stuff that we don't know, and then there's all this stuff that we can't know. And is that okay? Are we okay about not knowing it? Now,
Hmm.
that doesn't mean I'm not interested, but it means that I'm not going to spend a lot of effort trying to find an answer, especially when I know that that answer is made up. It's,
That we
anything.
can't truly know.
That's right. Yeah, anything that the mind can come to is just going to be, a convenience for us.
Yeah, it's like
So
even when someone tells you how they did something or what their own motives are, we don't they they don't necessarily know. It's just what they think
it's
in that moment. But
that's right. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I'm happy to live in that world of this is how we think it works, and this is how they think it works, and it doesn't matter whether I believe something different or not. It just is the way it is. Yeah.
so Vince, what would you tell me for homework?
Would you have? Would, is there something that we've spoken about today that piqued your interest?
I really like the thing about not being so hard on myself. I think that's my next frontier of like the self-blame, judgment,
Right. Yeah.
constant needing myself to be different has been extremely ill-making.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
that's
So there's you just set your own homework beautifully. Now, what is it about? It's not about not doing it. Don't jump down the rabbit hole of control again. Right? It's just recognizing it when it happens and watching what happens after you recognize it. So when you find that you've done something that you'll be judgmental towards yourself and you recognize it, you watch and that judgment will change.
what about if I'm in the midst of like obsessing for 3 hours researching something online? Should I try and stop it or just be like, oh, it's
Well,
ongoing?
if you come to the realization that you're doing it, there's a good chance that it will stop or it will change at least. You don't, so it might be a place of experiment for you to watch what happens when you recognize that you've been obsessing for 3 hours and instead of saying stop and then you do stop and you believe that you stopped because you said stop, don't say stop, just say I'm going to watch what happens.
Usually what happens is like last night, I'm like, oh my God, another hour has passed. And I'm like, you better hurry up and think about it faster. In other words, I didn't stop. I was like, I better just double down and try and make it work. In other words, um, just try
Yeah,
even
yeah,
harder to research and make up the decision. In other words, yeah, I just get sucked further into the
yeah,
rabbit
yeah,
hole.
yeah. Right. So that's partly because you were believing the story that it's only going to stop if you make it stop. What I'm saying to you now is, as an experiment, watch what happens when you realize that you've been doing it. Now, it may continue, and if it does, well, that's okay. It's going to continue, but it's going to be different. Watch what the difference is. Watch how it changes when you simply recognize that it's existing, that it's happening. And sometimes those things have got enough momentum to keep going, even though you recognize it, because you will be adding that you weren't before you realized it. There was no watcher, you were just in it. When you realize that it's happening, you become awareness of it.
Yeah, and then I see that I get even more frantic and double down and continue. So I'll just watch it all
Yeah,
happen.
Right. Well, you're predicting it now, so that may or may not be the way it works. But yeah, but that's where again, be interested in what happens.
Yeah, no, that's just what happened yesterday and what most often happens. I'm like, I yell at myself that it's been so long and I try to make it happen faster. In other words, it just keeps going, but I'll observe
Hmm.
again. Yeah.
Yeah. So this time, instead of just observing that it's happening and going, oh, I expect it will. I'll double down and keep going. Look for what changes as a result of the recognition, and see if that doesn't cause the whole thing to go in a different direction.
Okay, so not try to stop it and not try to not yell at myself and not try to not anything,
Yeah.
just watch it happen.
Just watch it. Yes. As it's an experiment to see
Hmm.
what happens. Yeah. And there's some hook in there that won't get activated if you just see it without judgment.
Yeah, the hook is this is an emergency, this is important, do it now, frantic, frantic. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
usually what it feels like. But
Mm.
I don't know how to tell myself that it's not true.
Don't tell yourself that. Don't try and talk yourself out of it. Just
Hmm.
watch it. So in a way, I'm saying,
Hmm.
imagine you're a spider on the wall watching it, right? So that you're objectified in that way by not being personally involved in it, just watching it, and then it changes. The whole thing changes.
Yeah.
And if you get lost in it again, well, that's what happens. But you'll come out of it again. You'll again realize, oh, I just did that for another 20 minutes. Right? And then you can just watch. Ah, okay. Isn't it interesting? I got sucked back into that.
Yeah. I guess where does it become permission to just, you know, stay stuck in stuff versus trying to change it? In other words, where does it become like complacency or allowance of bad
Yeah, that's
behaviors
an
or
interesting one.
habits?
And
But
I love that word permission too. So you're giving yourself permission to stay in it, or you're giving yourself permission to lose it. Right? Either could occur. Again, just as an experiment, watching it, see what happens about that.
all right, will do.
And look for that word permission where it might fit in with it. That's interesting. That has great potential. I feel a little excited about that one.
Yeah. It's really, really good to talk to you, Vince. I really appreciate you on a very deep level. So just letting you know that.
Thank you, Tammy. Yeah. And what are you? I get lots from talking to you. Thank you. Mm.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much.
Okay. Good night. Okay. Well, I'm going to go now too.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye.
Okay. Good night.